Hi, everyone. Really great to be with Voice Global today. We're excited to talk about the American Red Cross and what work we are doing to build community amidst the pandemic. So how are we using conversational AI? What are the products that we've launched and how are we using those to interact with the community in this new world? So to kick it off, I'll give myself a quick introduction. My name is Michelle Mullenax. I'm the product and UX lead for the innovation team at the American Red Cross. Specifically, I run conversational AI, and we'll talk a bit about what that practice looks like, what are we trying to accomplish here at the American Red Cross and on the innovation team. But before we do that, I'm going to kick it over to my colleague Anne for an introduction as well.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Anne Hermes. I am an associate product manager on the team with Michelle at the American Red Cross working on conversational AI products.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. So before Anne deep dives into the work that we're doing here on the conversational AI team, I'll give a baseline of what work we do at the American Red Cross for those who are not familiar, as well as the innovation team and why are we interested in conversational AI? Why is this an exciting technology for us? Why are we so amped up about voice? So the American Red Cross, very old organization. I imagine that most folks, especially in the United States, I know that this is a global conference, so we have friends from all around the world, which is amazing. But folks in the United States, most are familiar with the American Red Cross and what we do. But the scope of our work is quite diverse, so everyone's going to have a slightly different association with the work that we do. Some are very familiar with the life-saving blood products that we provide. We provide over 40% of the nation's life-saving blood supply. I think most folks are familiar with our disaster response work. So everything from the large-scale disasters like Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Michael, tornadoes, Superstorm Sandy in New York City and New Jersey, for example, but also very small local disasters. We respond to disasters big and small every single day. So this also includes home fires. And then the preparedness for those disasters, big and small. How do we prepare ourselves in case of these hurricanes, but also how do we prepare ourselves in case of a very devastating home fire? We also provide training services, so everything from first aid, babysitter training, lifeguard training, etc., as well as service to the armed forces, which is a throwback to our history. We have a very close relationship with our men and women of the armed forces and international work as well. So very big organization, very old organization, very impactful organization. For context of size, we're about 20,000 people who are paid staff, so 20,000 employees. But in volunteers, it's anywhere between 30,000 up to 180,000, depending on how you qualify an active volunteer. So anywhere from someone who will only go out when they're deployed for a disaster, and those who are there with us every single day as if they are a paid member of our staff. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two. So very large workforce and community of Red Crossers as well. So that's the Red Cross. The innovation team at the American Red Cross is very similar to innovation functions that you'd find at large corporations. So we're a technology function whose entire MO, our purpose is to go across the organization, conduct problem identification, and then solution identification that leverages either an emerging technology, as is the case with conversational AI and voice, as well as innovative applications of existing technologies. And we have a wide scope of work that we do on the innovation team. Some of it is data science and machine learning, hardcore quantitative models. Some of it is focused on automation, so a lot of products that integrate with our blood manufacturing business. And then there's conversational AI, which we're excited to talk about today. So that covers all facets of conversational AI, any sort of interface between human brain and artificial brain. So that includes chatbots, all flavors of chatbots, so web-based chatbots. In the long term, we're looking at Facebook chatbots, WhatsApp as that begins to proliferate the market even further, and voice, of course, so Alexa skills, Google Assistant. We have a bit of exploration within Siri, and then a big part of our practice will focus on bots and automation on IVR, so interactive voice response as well. So this is something we are very heavily invested in. We see it not as a bet on whether or not this is going to stick. We know that this technology is going to stick. We know that the proliferation of conversational products, particularly voice, will only continue to mature. And this is something that we are very proud to have entered early to make sure to support our constituents. So I'm going to pass it over to Anne, who will talk about what those specific products are and why we're so excited about them.
Sure, thanks, Michelle. So before we get into our COVID-19 response and how we've been impacted by that, I'm going to run you through a couple of the products that we have right now. There are always more in the works, but these are the things that we have live and in use these days. So to start off, we have a chatbot named Mabel. The use case there is for Redcross employees and volunteers. So Mabel sits on our internal website. Folks can go ask her questions about a variety of things, from employee handbook policies to how do I access my training, or how can I procure supplies, what's my PTO balance. So the idea there is to have a self-service bot that will give people the answers that they need to get their job done, whether that be one of our employees or one of our many, many volunteers. The second use case is for blood donors. So we have two different products in that space. The first is another chatbot named Clara. She is on our website, redcrossblood.org. Clara's able to schedule and manage blood donation appointments. So one-stop shop for everything you need to do with your donation appointment. She also can answer a wide variety of eligibility questions. So in order to donate blood, you need to meet certain criteria, and she's able to provide you with that information. So there are certain medications that if you're taking them, you're not eligible to donate blood. If you have certain illnesses and other kind of sensitive topics like that. So the chatbot is a great technology, so people are a bit more open and ask those questions a bit more freely and know if they're eligible to come in and help out by donating blood.
Hey, Anne, can I jump in? There's a really cute fact that we should probably share about Mabel and Clara and where they got their names.
Very true. So Clara is named after the founder of the American Red Cross, Clara Barton. So you can see her little avatar on the slides. Clara is our founder. And Mabel is another one of the founding members, Mabel Boardman. So we've named them after those near and dear to our hearts. Good point, Michelle. So jumping from Clara to our other product in the blood donor space, we have an Alexa skill for blood donations. So folks can say, hey, Alexa, I want to schedule a blood donation appointment. The content there is focused a lot more on managing your appointments and a little bit less on eligibility. But nonetheless, people are able to do things like check their donation history, see when they have an upcoming appointment in case they forgot, and do all of that via voice. Which is great and very straightforward for people. Moving on, we have another kind of training-based use case, a first aid Alexa skill. So as Michelle mentioned, one of the services that the Red Cross provides is training courses for things like first aid, CPR. We have an Alexa skill that can serve as a companion to one of those courses. So say you go take a first aid class, afterwards you want to kind of brush up on your knowledge, you can use the first aid Alexa skill to ask questions like, what are the symptoms of a stroke, or how do I treat a burn? You can get all that information within the Alexa skill, as well as take some quizzes and kind of brush up on your knowledge there. So that's a great way to keep people engaged after they complete their training and ensure that their skills are kept up to date. Finally, last voice skill that we have is a skill for hurricane alerts. So hurricane season is coming up here, or already started soon. You can use the hurricane alert skill to notify you if there are any hurricanes coming in your area. So if there's a hurricane watch or warning, you just go into the Alexa skill, add your location, and then in the future, she'll notify you if there are any hurricanes that you should expect in your area so that you can take the steps necessary to either evacuate or protect yourself. So that is our current suite of products, covering a wide range of things and touching almost all of the areas that the Red Cross does. And on that note, we'll move forward to talk a little bit about how those have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the things that we've done to respond to that. So when COVID-19 really started to affect folks in the United States, we had two ideas in mind. We really wanted to make sure that we engaged our community and got the most accurate information out there. Things are very uncertain in these times, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. There was a lot of conflicting information out there. People weren't sure where to get these sorts of details about safety or other things like that. And during these times of crisis, people really look towards the American Red Cross. People know us as responding to disasters, so it was important for us that we utilized these conversational AI products to engage with folks and provide them with the correct information. As I mentioned, a key part of that was making sure that we had consistent and reliable information in our products. So one of the big efforts that we had involved really in improving our turnaround time. So, you know, policies and safety procedures and information is changing very rapidly at the beginning of the pandemic. People weren't quite sure how things were going to settle out. So all of the information would be changing, you know, a couple times a week. We did a lot of work to ensure that we would be able to implement new features and new content in a timely manner so that people were getting that accurate and reliable information from our products and having a great user experience in that sense, and felt like they were able to really rely on us. So on that note, we'll get into the specifics of what we did. I'll talk about two of our different use cases. One being the blood donation use case, and the other impact on employees and volunteers. So first, just a little bit about how we were impacted by COVID-19. In terms of blood donation, we had a lot of volume coming in, folks who were really concerned about coming in to donate blood. So some people donate blood on a very regular basis. It's something that they just do like clockwork. As soon as they're eligible again, they come in for their appointment. I love to help out in that way. When the pandemic really started, even those folks were very concerned about coming in to donate blood. They weren't quite sure, is it going to be safe? What is the Red Cross doing to ensure that it's safe? What if I have COVID-19 and don't know it? Am I going to pass it through my blood? All sorts of questions like that were coming in through our channels, and we were seeing people are concerned and they really want this information. So the first thing that we did was make sure that we could get that content added so that we could be a source of information for people, and that they would know that it is still okay to come donate blood. It is safe. Provided them with the information about social distancing and the precautions that we were taking to ensure that they could still come in and donate blood. So really the blood donation products served to kind of comfort folks during this time and let them know that they didn't need to be concerned. No need to worry. You can still come in, help out, do your part, and feel like you're contributing without worrying. We're going to take care of you, kind of. So that was a great way to engage and kind of reassure the community of blood donors that, you know, blood donations are still going on and you can still contribute. The second thing that happened was a wide shortage of blood drives in general. So with stay-at-home orders and social distancing, a lot of blood drives were being canceled for safety reasons, which is totally understandable. In conjunction with this, the Surgeon General made a lovely announcement to call people to donate blood so that we didn't have a shortage. That caused us to see a huge increase in volume to all of our products. So the blood donation Alexa skill volume doubled, and the Chatbot actually saw a 10-fold increase in users during that time because everyone was eager to help out. But that huge increase in volume, along with the shortage of blood drives, meant that it might be a little bit difficult for people to find somewhere to donate. In this type of situation, we don't want to lose those people, right? They're very excited. They're very willing to help. We want to keep them as part of our community. We want to make sure that they know the Red Cross will still need their help. So what we did was make a couple changes to the user experience to ensure that people understood why there might be a shortage of appointments right now and that we still need their help. We still appreciate them. We still want them to come in and donate, just maybe a little bit further in the future given the current situation. So we really saw a lot of changes there, especially in terms of volume, and we're able to respond pretty quickly to improve that user experience so that we kept those potential donors and didn't leave a bad taste in their mouth because there were no appointments. And I think that's one huge benefit of this technology, right, is that we're able to make those quick changes on the fly to help the users out, instead of having to, say, train everyone in a call center to answer those questions or triage appropriately. We can get that consistent, reliable information out to everyone all at once, especially when you're seeing those huge volumes. That's very, very important. The last kind of wrinkle that COVID-19 introduced for our blood donation use case was an entirely new donation type. So when you go to donate blood, there are a few different types of donations. You can just donate your whole blood, platelets. With the pandemic, it was identified that people who previously had COVID-19 had antibodies in their plasma that can be used to treat people who are currently very, very ill with COVID-19. So we had to spin up a whole new process to donate that plasma and identify folks who definitely had the virus in the past. And so that was one of the things that we had to scale up in the chatbot, was information on that process and how folks could get involved. To this day, we see a super high volume of people asking, I think I had COVID-19, how can I help? Very reassuring to see that so many people want to lend a helping hand during these uncertain times. And it was very, very beneficial for us to have that information there in the chatbot so that people can get it self-service, get that information that they need, and find a way to contribute. So that covers the blood donation use case. Moving on to what we did with Red Cross employees and volunteers. So as I mentioned previously, we have that chatbot that Red Cross employees and volunteers can access to gain all sorts of HR-related information, policies, etc. So around the same time, in mid-March, we noticed that a lot of these Red Crossers were very concerned. They had a lot of questions about policies. If I think I have COVID-19, can I take sick leave? Am I allowed to work from home now? What should I do if my children can't go to school? People were very, very nervous, and they didn't know where to find this information. There's a lot of conflicting information that they're getting from different sources. So what we did here was work very closely with HR to add a whole new suite of content to the chatbot that would answer these questions and kind of quell those fears that people were having around the pandemic. Really impressive here. We actually were able to get this all done and add all this new content in a matter of days. And within a week, we were able to successfully answer about 95% of those questions. So with a week's turnaround time and close monitoring and maintenance, we were able to answer the vast majority of these people's questions, which has a huge impact on their experience at work. If you know what to expect, feel that you don't need to be worried about what's going to happen if you get sick. It really impacts people to feel safe and taken care of in the workplace. So that's one thing that had a huge impact. We continue to monitor this to see how things are going. So one other great thing about using this technology in particular is that we aren't only able to get that information out to the employees and volunteers, but we're also able to provide feedback to HR and other folks internally on what people want to know. So through the chatbot data, we can actually inspire new policies and allow them to identify what concerns people do have and maybe come up with new ways to address them. So not only monitoring to see how well the chatbot is performing, but monitoring to see how can we improve the overall experience, not just the chatbot experience, but how can we improve the experience for all of our Red Cross community members and help them to really navigate these tough waters. So I think that about covers our response. Apart from just these changes that we were making, the impact of COVID-19 on how we approach our business is actually quite large. So I mentioned that we saw a huge increase in utilization for our blood donation products. We saw something very similar for the first aid Alexa skill that I was talking about earlier. So it's not necessarily directly related to COVID-19, so you might not expect to see much change. But with more folks staying at home, maybe unable to go to their first aid classes in person, a lot of things are moving remote. Portions of those training courses are remote now. These voice products are really adding a lot more value. People are at home, they need to do more things remotely, and having something interactive as opposed to just maybe some reading material can really help kind of fill that void of maybe going to something in person or getting training through other methods. So in the long term, the more things that we can move remote, the better, and voice can really fill in that gap for a lot of use cases. And on a similar note, this kind of renewed our focus on education-related use cases. So we mentioned earlier that a lot of what the Red Cross does includes these training courses, first aid, CPR, etc. And we have this Alexa skill that can serve as a companion. Another initiative that the Red Cross has involves educating folks on fire safety. So they will go to educate children in schools on safety for home fires, also going to people's houses to help install smoke alarms and things like that. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, a lot of this has to be put on hold because of social distancing. But we are now exploring different ways to use voice to fill that gap. So specifically, Alexa skills around fire safety, maybe something for children. So stay tuned for more on that in the future. But the pandemic and having everything move remote has really opened up this space for us and renewed the focus that we have there. And finally, how do we think this is going to impact us in the future? Along the same lines of what I was just discussing, a lot of our focus can be on how can we move the Red Cross mission and help deliver that more remotely. So I mentioned the first aid classes are moving partially remote, not completely, but partially. Other things that are impacted with the American Red Cross are things like disaster relief efforts. So rather than sheltering everyone in a large shelter, folks are sheltered in hotels. They're provided with support virtually now. Is voice something that we can use, or a chatbot something that we can use to answer people's questions, provide them with support during those tough times? And having the pandemic force everything to go remote has really forced us to look at opportunities there and see how else we can utilize this technology to deliver the Red Cross's mission. And along similar lines, as I mentioned earlier, the Red Cross is really an organization that people look to in times of emergency and times of need. So identifying more ways that we can engage with our community, provide them with that reliable and consistent information that they expect, as well as support. These products are great for providing people with some support because there's a little bit of interaction there. So looking for more ways that we can do that using these products.
Yeah, and I think you covered it. You scoped out our response to COVID-19. You spoke on how has it changed the conversation internally at the Red Cross, and how will we be using the power of voice to engage with our constituents moving forward, and really drove home this notion that folks turn to the Red Cross in times of need, and we better be there, right? And if that means meeting folks inside their homes virtually via voice products or chatbots, any sort of realization of conversational AI, that is something that we are dedicated to, and we're excited to see how that unfolds. Well, thank you, Voice Global community. Very excited to hear from our fellow voice leaders and all of the amazing things that they are doing in this incredible space.
Thank you.